everyone? Welcome to the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. I'm Todd Milles, your host, and welcome to League and District Playoff Basketball Week around the state of Washington. We'll be joined by our two correspondents, Blake Conley, the former boys coach at Union on the boys side, and Pete Smith, the former girls coach at Tahoma on the girls side. We will look at district bracket seeding and potential matchups, including district championship games. And then Matt Evans from Evans Rankings will join us. We will look at his latest Sunday computer rankings and take the top two teams from each classification on girls and boys and grade the likelihood that those two teams will meet in the WIAA championship game in March. Stick around for a great show. Welcome back to the first segment of the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. We're going to start with the boys this week, and joined from down south, Blake Conley, former Union coach who's tending to other things. Hoping someday he jumps back on the bench. But for now, he's looking at all that goes on around the state. He's on the 4A selection committee. And Blake, let's kind of look at the way that the biggest district in the state, the District 3-4 tournament was seeded. Auburn, I don't think anybody's surprised as the number one seed. ER 2, Camas 3, Puyallup 4. Any of that surprise you on the seeding part?
Yeah, I mean, no surprises necessarily, but there was some movement, especially with it's interesting because it's a three league by district, but only one of the leagues has a league tournament. So you had the SPSL champion, Emerald Ridge, who ran the table in the SPSL, beat Puyallup twice, beat Bonnie Lake. I mean, they had a really good conference season. And then they do this little 2-game district or league tournament, and Puyallup goes, and the third time it was a charm for them, and they got ER. Both games had come down to the last seconds in the regular season, and then Puyallup won. So I don't think Puyallup would have been in the top 4. I think probably would have been Kent Ridge, who was about to tie for the NPSL championship, but Kentwood knocked them off in the last game, rivalry game on Kent Ridge's home court. So those two teams kind of flipping at 5 and 6, but no surprises. Kent Ridge, Camas won their league, and then ER won their league, and then Auburn won theirs. Those are the top 3, and then but really tough top 5, and even that the 6, 7, 8 in that league. You have Kentwood who just beat Kent Ridge, and they're really tough. Blake Solomon's always going to have his team playing their best at the end of the year, and Bonnie Lake started out really strong. Emerald Ridge really beat them badly. So we'll kind of see which Bonnie Lake team kind of shows up for the playoffs. And then Skyview as the 8 seed, that's a really dangerous team. And so that Skyview or Auburn potential game, if both teams were to win, and Skyview has a tough Sumner team, but if they were to match up in that winner to state game and in the 1-8 matchup, I mean, it's a really fun tournament with a lot of good teams. But I don't think anybody was surprised that Auburn was number 1. That's probably who he would have been chosen in the beginning. But ER had a great season. Yes, they lost the last game to Puyallup, but they're a tough team too.
Yeah, that championship game in the 4A SPSL was Saturday night at Tahoma Community College. Skyview is an 8 seed. Just some of your thoughts about that and how dangerous they can be in a tournament like this. Are there really 7 better teams in this district tournament or by district tournament than Skyview?
I think that they lost to Union the last game of the year, and I think that dropped them a little bit. I think they would have been in that 6-7 range a little bit more than they were. But looking at their body of work, I think they had to be the 8 seed. But I don't know if there's 7 better teams. I mean, Malachi Weimer is just such a tough guard. He's strong. He can shoot it. Des Daniel, who came over from Evergreen, he's just a heady guard and has some length, can shoot the 3, get to the rim. Their defenses, they do a really good job of forcing everything to the sideline. And so they're a really tough team. I think their resume just during the season, just wasn't, for whatever reason. I know they're missing some guys, at certain points in the year, but they're a really good 8 seed. And I will not be surprised if anybody, and nobody will be surprised if they make a run, and definitely if they get one of the 6 berths out of that district.
What and you look at the bracket and the way it could potentially break, which Which matchup in the first round or deeper in the bracket intrigues you the most?
I would really like to see the if it goes chalk, especially the first game, and there could be some upsets. But Kent Ridge versus Puyallup, I think is a really fun. That's a really fun game. And then, like I said, the Auburn Skyview game, I think would be a good one. And then if you get into later, I think that Camas going against Emerald Ridge, if both are able to advance the first two games, and I mean neither of them have a easy draw, but that would be a fun one to watch. Camas, I think I said last week that they haven't really put it together, but they're so dangerous with Ethan Harris and his range, and they have some length and they can pressure you a little bit, and so it's just going to be fun to see some of these teams that play different teams. I know down here they play each other 3 times, so they're just itching to play somebody else. To see some of those matchups, and then the 3-6 game. If Kentwood were to win and Camas were to win their first game, Kentwood coming down to Camas, I think that's a really fun matchup. Just with the guard play of Kentwood, and they were so close to knocking off so many teams this year, and they finally got Cambridge at the last game. So I think that'd be a great matchup to watch too.
Yeah, Scott Thompson certainly knew how to navigate the District 3-4 bracket on the girls' side. He gets his first foray in the boys' side with the Papermakers. Let's jump up north, where I think I think there's definitely established tiers, both in the Wesco and the Kinko. And Lauren and I had a chance to see Lake Washington, a really well played Lake Washington Mount Si game a week ago Saturday at Mount Si. Boy, Mount Si 10 deep. Jason's says he's never had a rotation that long before, but I can see why he's playing 10. It's hard to take some of those guys, keep them off the floor. And then you have Glacier Peak with the class of the 4A Wesco. Do you think that team up north with Brian can kind of break up the Kinko party when these two leagues combine in their district tournament?
I mean, absolutely, yeah. I think whoever it's my understanding that the seating has not been set yet for the Kinko, so I think it could be Mount Si or Lake Washington on that side with Glacier Peak. So I mean, they're going to have to go through both of them. Could Glacier Peak beat one of them? Absolutely. I mean, to beat two of those teams, but I mean, absolutely, Glacier Peak, they run their stuff so well. They're so meticulous. They remind you, I mean, and they've played faster recently, but he always, Brian Hunter and Glacier Peak, they always reminded me of Tony Bennett, Virginia, Washington State. They're going to run their stuff. They're going to play good defense. They're not going to make a lot of mistakes. And teams like that can go far. So for, whether it's Lake Washington or Mount Si, whatever, if they were to meet in the playoffs, that would be a really fun game. And then they might have to see the other one in the championship. But don't count out Redmond. They're a good team, and Woodinville has proven they can beat some teams. So it's just going to be a really fun and really interesting tournament up there. But the answer is yes. I think Glacier Peak could definitely win that by district. I don't think anybody would be surprised there. But that's three of probably the top 6 or 7 teams in my opinion up there in that one district.
With all eyes on those 3 kind of heavy hitters, is there somebody potentially in that bracket you feel like can make some quiet noise? You mentioned Redmond. I know Issaquah's been kind of hit or miss. You mentioned Woodinville. Is there anybody in the Wesco that you have your eyes on? Anybody you feel like can make some noise and maybe pull off an upset or two?
I wish I had a team. I don't think so. I know that Arlington has done some stuff. This year they've had a couple games that were closer with some of the good teams, and they had a great run last year, made it, at the Dome. But they just, so they have a couple kids back. I know that they have some experience, but I think it's so top heavy. And I think Redmond, I mean, I know that they don't count in this, but man, I think that they really could really beat any of those teams up there. So, but I don't see any of the Wesco. I think the Kinko is so deep and so strong that it'll probably, my prediction would be it's a pretty Kinko heavy on the wins and loss sides, and then we'll see what kind of matchups we get. But Issaquah just beat Woodinville by I think it's like 20 something in a game. So like they're playing well too, and they've been up and down. They beat Kentwood. So those kind of those second tier Kinko teams, they're legit. So we'll have to see what happens up there.
I know you and I have talked about what's going on in East, and lo and behold, those two teams leading the GSL and the Mid Columbia Conference have not lost since we've taped our podcast 2 weeks ago. They seem to be just sort of on a collision course for that district number one seed. A, anything can interrupt that, and B, what are you noticing about Richland and Gonzaga Prep as we get to crunch time here in the postseason?
Yeah, I mean, I would be shocked. I think anybody would be shocked if Richmond doesn't make the championship over there. But the thing about Gonzaga Prep and it's a double-edged sword is because of the pace of they play, and they're not as they are very meticulous in what they do, and so they'll have closer games with teams. I mean, they're not. If you look at the scores, they're not beating people by 30 and scoring 90 like Richland, but the way that they do it translates very well to playoffs. But they are a team that if somebody gets hot against them with a little bit when it's lower possessions, if a team gets hot, they could get upset. So I don't know if there's the team over there. It looks like they've kind of had Meade's number. Kamayakin beat Chiawana by 19 earlier, 17 or 19, I believe it was. So Chiawana shoots it really well. So if Chiawana and Gonzaga were to play, I think that'd be a really interesting game. I think that could be one that to keep your eye on. That would be definitely one that I would want to watch live if it was on. So I think that would be an interesting one that if I was Gonzaga, I might be definitely hunkering down for. But otherwise, I think we're going to see a Richland Gonzaga final in there, and then it'll be interesting to see who gets that third spot, whether it's Kamayakin or Meade or Chiawana. So that's really fun. But just to see the contrast in styles with Gonzaga and Richland, they've had so many battles in the last decade with each other, and I would expect to be this one to be very similar.
Yeah, Earl Striford has to try and find a way to get over that Gonzaga Prep hump here at districts, beaten 2 years ago on their home court. Last year, losing to Gonzaga Prep. Like you said, that District 6 has an extra berth. I don't know if that came from the District 3-4, which is from 7 to 6, which makes the District 3-4 tournament all that more interesting. Well, a lot of people nationally have tuned into the 3A Metro League. It gets its share of national ratings in general, but now with Tyron Stokes at Rainier Beach, J.J. Crawford had been sidelined here the last week or so with an ankle injury. Rainier Beach goes up to Eastside Catholic and turns a deficit into a huge win. That Metro League tournament is this week. Mike Buffet is going if they get to the championship game, and I'm assuming a collision course with O'Day could get win number 700. A lot of stuff is in play here going to this week at SBU, and then obviously the Sea King District tournament. Anything that says Beach is slowing down, anything that you've seen where it's just sort of like, yeah, that team would be a potentially matchup problem for the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a matchup problem. I don't see that. But I do think the more, like I think I said this a couple times ago, is that I think the more times you see them, I think the more comfortable you get. Coaches are just going to continue to try to figure it out, try to look and see, is there any Achilles heel to this Rainier Beach team? And they've had these amazing second halves, and they can just turn it on just like that. They've shown that many times, but they've had some close games. So I think the more opportunities that these teams get to play against them and get to see the pressure. I mean, you're never going to be able to simulate going against a Stokes, but the more you've seen it, the less shocking it is. So you got to think some of these teams will hopefully be able to instill, whether Coach Kerr instilling some confidence in his guys and rising to the occasion maybe and just hoping for a bad couple quarters of shooting. But so I think they are a beatable team. And I think the more that teams play them, if you're a coach, you hope that your kids just kind of believe more and more that they are human, and they can be exploited in some ways. The more you see it.
Before we let you go, now that you're out of coaching, is there a particular team that you like to tune into around the state? Just schematically, you just like watching, stylistically, schematically, you just like watching them play, or a couple teams that you've just really kind of found yourself, on NFHS, and I'm going to watch this team. I like watching them play.
Oh, that's a great question. The teams, I've been really interested in teams that kind of I was, very much, we played with a lot of pace, but I also really am interested in, we also had a lot of set plays, and I've noticed a big trend in kind of like this freedom of basketball. And Richland has always kind of played like that. So I've always been interested. I was a little more old school and, how many set plays we had and things like that. But just to be able to see how these coaches, like Richland, and some of these teams that just play a little bit faster, but still have the organization, because there's this line between being able to play fast, and being able to just give your kids some freedom. Lake Washington's a team that I really like too, and they run some really good stuff. But there's also this a level of freedom that their kids have, and just some confidence, especially when you have the depth that some of these teams have, that I really think is just fun to watch. So yeah, I think I would love to see some statistics about scoring. Scoring does seem to be higher around the state, and kind of it just mirrors what's happening in the college game and in the pro game, and kind of kicks down. So we have some great coaches who like to see that. But even like I said, Glacier Peak with Brian Hunter, I mean, when we played them, they were always so slow, and they'd run the sets, and it was just, they ran them perfectly. But even just to kind of see his evolution and their evolution as a team, and him as a coach, giving his kids, a little bit more freedom, and teaching them how to play with conceptually, rather than just, looking at the coach for a set play, and having him have success in that. So those are the kind of the teams that I've enjoyed seeing, just to kind of say, like, man, there's the paradigm shift that's been happening in sports, and how it kind of goes down and into even the high school level.
Before his life gets a little crazier in a couple weeks, seeding the WIA bracket. Thank Blake Conley for coming on the podcast. A lot of fun here in the next few weeks, where the games are now serious, very serious, and appreciate you joining the podcast. We'll talk soon, my friend.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to the second segment of our VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. I'm Todd Milles, your host. We usually have this guy leading off, but we're switching it up, man. Pete Smith, former coach at Tahoma, kind of to break down some of the girls' district seeding and some of the potential matchups, especially in 4A. Let's start with the biggest district in the state, District 3-4 Combine. Gets 6 berths into the state regional round. Union, the number 1 seed, that when that seeding came out over the weekend, Sumner 2, Auburn 3, and Tahoma 4. Anything about the seeding, Pete, especially at the top, surprise you?
Well, man, before we get started on this is the best time of the year. Districts, I mean, it might be punching your ticket to the Dome, might be better than winning at the Dome. It's just a lot of hard work that goes on all season to get to this point, and then got to go win a couple games here to get to the ultimate goal. But as far as the seeding, back when I was coaching at Tahoma, seedings were predetermined. And so you kind of had an idea where you were going to fall and who you're going to play. There's even some speculation that some people threw some games to find themselves in a spot they wanted to be in. So I'm very happy to see that there is a seeding committee and that this thing gets seeded out correctly. And it's not always perfect, but having some human input is always important. This is a kind of a fun tournament. If you look at the 1 and 2 seeds, like if you ended up with Sumner Union for the district championship game, sign me up for that. Like, I'd love to watch that basketball game. I think Gary's got it rolling down there at Union, and Katie's obviously doing everything at Sumner. So like, sign me up for that. But it's a long tournament. There's a long way to go through this. And so I have 4 games that I'm kind of looking at here that really intrigue me. In round 1, Camas versus Olympia. I think this is a 12-5 seeded game. Camas obviously has been there, done that. I know they lost a lot from last year, but they still have a lot of they still have kids that were a part of that program and understand that. And you need that experience to give yourself a run through the tournament. And then Dustin Workman does a great job at Olympia. He broke my heart a time or two at Tahoma. And so he's got the experience too. And so I'm really excited to watch that game. And then the winner of that gets to travel potentially to Tahoma and play the 4 seed. And I'm very curious to see how that all shakes up. So a couple games right there. And then I think the Auburn Skyview game is also a potential game in round 2 that I'm really looking forward to. I think Skyview is kind of flying under the radar a little bit. Union's kind of gotten all the talk down south, and Skyview was kind of right there with them. And so I'm excited to see how that game works itself out for a potential matchup with Sumner in the semifinals. And then lastly, just the Union Sumner game. If that were to happen in the district championship, like I said, sign me up for that game. I think that'd be really good basketball with 2 great coaches and a lot of talent across the board.
Do you think that's going to be the matchup in the district championship game? Sumner?
Yeah. Like if I had to pick right now, I would say yes. But that's the thing about districts, just some experience and coaching go a long way. And all it takes is one bad night. And that's the beauty of high school basketball. One bad night, your season could be over. One bad night, you're putting yourself in a spot where you got to win more games than you want to. Been there, done that. And so it's just kind of who can find a way to get stops on the defensive end and who can have a hot shooting night, because those 2 things right there could change everybody's fortune.
Let's go up north, where the Kinko and the Wesco will join forces and play. The number 1 seed out of Kinko is Bothell, and then Woodinville, and then Lake Washington, and then you have Eastlake and Redmond, and a host of teams that potentially can make some noise. And on the Wesco, on the side of Wesco, you have Lake Stevens, the undefeated league champion, and then Glacier Peak, which made that great run last year, upending Union and Chiawana to get to the state semifinals before losing to Davis. What intrigues you about those teams kind of mixing and matching and seeing how that district up there plays out?
Yeah. So the first thing, I would hate to play Glacier Peak. I would hate to play against Brian Hill, because you could have a game plan for how his team runs, but I've never seen somebody mix up his defenses so much. He'll run zone, he'll run box and 1, he'll run reverse box, he'll run straight man to man, he'll press you. Like, you just can't prepare for what he might do, because he's willing to try anything. And that's really hard to prepare for. And then you have to make in-game decisions based upon what he's doing in real time to counter that. And so that's one team that I would want to avoid going into this time of year, because with that style of play, it is very hard to prepare for, especially if you're going on 1 or 2 days rest. Lake Stevens, though, had a great season, so I'm excited to see what they do. But oh my goodness, I think tomorrow night we have Lake Washington versus Woodinville and Bothell versus Eastlake in the Kinko tourney. So those 4 teams going into this district tournament, you could have 1 through 4 in any order there. Jeff Wilson versus Scott Bullock in the semis, that is a very well coached matchup right there with a lot of talent on the court. So I'm excited to watch that one. I'll be tuning in for that. And then Goldie, she has the experience at Eastlake where she doesn't always come across as the number 1 team. And she definitely has her team sometimes fly under the radar. But when she gets to the Dome, she knows how to win there. Her kids are prepared, and she knows how to win on a nightly basis. And that's the most important thing, because you're playing 3 or 4 games in a row. And so you have to be able to make those adjustments and get your kids prepared in less than 24 hours. And she does a very good job of that.
And then you look at East, Pete, and you got 3 teams over there that, man, they're like tractors. You got Gonzaga Prep, Chiawana, Davis. 2 of those teams might end up playing each other in a matchup of undefeated programs for the District 6 championship game in Chiawana and Gonzaga Prep. Mm-hmm. What intrigues you about a game like that? First of all, 2 teams that haven't lost, that have enjoyed so much success, and B, just those 2 programs in general, very tradition-rich programs. Gonzaga Prep has won state championship before. Chiawana finally getting to the Dome last year, but has really kind of risen to kind of that elite program in the Mid-Columbia Conference.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And being from Spokane, the East Side basketball can definitely get overlooked and can be undervalued, but there is some real talent on the East side of the state. and a lot of coaches that do things the right way. So I wanted to make sure I'm giving a shout out to that. Gonzaga Prep and Chiawana, again, it's just kind of another matchup I would love to see in the district championship because both teams are undefeated. I think with both teams going to state, I think it'd be a good benchmark for both programs just to kind of see where they're at heading in to the state finals. But before we get to that, I don't want to discount Meade. Coach Q has been doing for a long time there. He's got a state title himself, and he finds a way to hang that, to cut down those nets and hang it around his neck. And so I don't want to discount him because I think he could give Chiawana a real run for their money in the semifinals. District 5 though, Davis, I'm not seeing anybody out of District 5 and the Big 9 that's going to take Davis down and prevent them from potentially being the number 1 seed heading into state. If I had to guess, I see that happening. It's a 1-game championship essentially. And if they win that, then I think they got the number 1 seed locked up.
Yeah. But I mean, like you mentioned, let's not sell Eastern Washington basketball short. There's a very real chance that the top 2 seeds in the 4A girls state seeding could be coming from Eastern Washington.
Exactly.
Davis and the winner of that Chiawana Gonzaga Prep potentially District 6 championship game. Let's talk about some stuff in 3A and Bellevue and Roosevelt. Probably been the 2 most consistent teams from start to finish. Roosevelt's kind of run through the Metro League. Bellevue, with that young talent, they've played a few of the heavy hitters in 4A. I think they're probably the co-favorites right now. Anybody else in 3A though, Pete, that you've kind of had your eye on or don't sleep on?
Yeah. Before we get to that, I was looking at the district or the Metro 3A tourney right now, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I saw Seattle Prep and Garfield playing for the 5-6 seed coming out of that league, which is just insane to me, which means I think the Metro is a little bit deeper than everybody thought. Bellevue, I still think is the clear favorite to come out of that district though. I haven't seen anything with just from watching that is going to prevent them from running through that district tournament and being the number 1 seed heading into state. District 1 though, I think it's going to be a fun tournament. I keep looking at Snohomish, Edmonds, Woodway, and Stanwood, those 3 teams. Snohomish is playing really good basketball. Ken Roberts is doing a really good job up there. But I just, those 3 teams, I think it's a lot closer than what meets the eye. And the RPI would show that. I know it's not the most reliable ranking tool, but we got Snohomish at 6, Stanwood at 5, and Edmonds Woodway at 8. And so I think those 3 teams are very close. And so I think it's going to be a fun tournament to watch.
Yeah, I think you're touching on probably the deepest 2 districts in 3A, District 1 and District 2, that Sea King district.
Mm-hmm.
All those Metro teams in Bellevue will start playing next week at Bellevue College. Yep. Let's wrap this up with a little talk about Linden, the 2-time defending champs, the buzzsaws of 2A. I mean, I would be an idiot if I didn't think they were the favorite, the clear favorite in 2A. The question is, who's going to be the team that steps up and challenges them? Who's the team that's going to, run to the finish line and play them in a championship game? Pete, are there some candidates that you're kind of looking at in 2A that are potentially there? Those teams?
Yeah, well, let's just stay in District 1. I'm one of the most intriguing matchups I have on my list is the Archbishop potential matchup between Archbishop Murphy and Squilcomb. I think one of those 2 teams is going to get an opportunity to play Linden for the district championship. And just like when we were talking about Chiawana and Gonzaga Prep, I think it's a good benchmark to see where they're at heading into the dome. It could be either a valuable loss or unexpected win that could carry them and have some momentum as they travel down south to Yakima. The loser of that game, though, on the flip side, between Archbishop Murphy and Squilcomb, they have a long road. Like there's a crossover game involved. And so like I just feel like that's going to be a really good basketball game, and one that I wish I could be in the gym for. That being said, I still think Linden is a clear favorite coming out of District 1. Um, Rob Adams, I think we talked about him on the first podcast. His kids probably haven't gotten out of that stance that we were talking about in the last 4 weeks. Everything, they're very efficient offensively, but they understand how to get stops. And I just don't know who's going to be able to score enough to keep up with them. Other notable 2A schools, though, Deer Park, Clarkston, and WF West are on my list. And then Ellensburg is always going to be there. Coming off a couple state titles themselves. They got the experience, been there, done that. I'm looking for Deer Park to really take that jump, though, and challenge Linden. I'm really excited to see what they got and what they're going to do, as well as Clarkston. I think those are two teams that really could challenge Linden.
Yeah, you talked about Archbishop Murphy and Squalicum. Both teams play in multi-classification leagues. Archbishop Murphy has sort of dominated the 3A Wesco the last few years, and have Brooke Blockley, who's going to Santa Clara to play for Lori Payne, leading the way. Another great year by the Wildcats. And Squalicum has not been part of this party before. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that moment. A lot of good basketball this time of year, my friend. I appreciate you joining the podcast. I can see the excitement, even being in Arizona. You'll be tuning in, seeing what happens here in the first week of district play all around the state. Our girls basketball correspondent, Pete Smith, thanks for joining the podcast. We'll talk right around seating time, and stay cool, my friend.
Sounds good. Thanks, bro.
Welcome back to the third segment of the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. I'm Todd Milles, your host, joined by our friend in the Tri-Cities, Matt Evans from Evans Rankings. He is, it's coming like a faucet from Evans Rankings on how he would see the tournament, his latest rankings. I want to have fun with your rankings, actually, Matt.
All right, let's do it.
Those rankings came out Sunday. I want you to we're going to take the top two teams in each classification, boys and girls, and we're going to grade it on a scale from 1 to 5, the likelihood that these two teams would meet in the state championship game. Now, obviously, under the condition, there's a lot of stuff that has to go, correctly especially in seeding for that to happen. We recognize that, but just in the imaginary world of brackets, these two teams playing for a state championship. So let's just start right at the top. 4A boys. You have Glacier Peak and Richland. 1-2. Give me your grading on that on the scale from 1 to 5. Those two teams meeting in the WIA championship game.
I feel very confident about Richland. I think that, we can agree, and most people agree, they're probably a top 2 team in the state overall, if not best team in the state. Now Glacier Peak, they've gotten boosted a bit in their rankings because they don't have any losses, and I think they are a really good team, but I'm not so sure about that. I think Mount Si's really coming on strong right now. I mean, you heard about the return of Lat Ward. I think that he's, the addition with now just boosts them up to make a run there. Now, it obviously is going to come down to seeding, but I think that I would go Richland Mount Si right now.
So on a scale from 1 to 5, what'd that be?
Probably a 2.
A 2. I'm going to give Glacier Peak's track record a little more credit than that, Matt. I mean, they've been in the state semifinals. They just can't get over that Friday hump. Brian Hunter does a great job. I really like his team. We're gonna see when the Wesco and the Kinko get together here very shortly. If how they match up to the heavy hitters, Lake Washington, Mount Si. I'll say 3. That Glacier Peak and Richland meet in the state championship game. But I'm with you on Mount Si with as many ways as they can beat you with height, depth. They can go small and guard you. It's that's a team that's coming on, and now with Lat Ford being back, that's a scary team. And how if they can put it all together and keep this mojo going, they're going to be a tough out. Well, let's go to your 3A rankings, and your top 2 teams are Rainier Beach and Bellarmine Prep. What do you think, man? On a scale from 1 to 5, these two teams meeting for the 3A championship.
I'm probably the least confident in this one. I'd probably give it a 1. I think that I don't nothing against Bellarmine Prep. I think they're a really good team, but I think that at the end of the day, the 3A championship goes to the Metro, and I think that O'Day and Eastside Catholic will probably be your two strongest contenders to be there. And honestly, if I'm going with someone who's outside of a Metro, I'm probably looking at Edmonds Woodway over at Bellarmine Prep.
I'm much higher in Bellarmine Prep. I think they're really, really good. Yeah, they have to go through the Metro gauntlet, but they have not lost since the first weekend of the season. Matt, they play really good defense. They've got 3 guys at 6'6" and taller who rebound, play with a really good work rate. Their issue, especially against the Metro League teams, is going to be minimizing ball handling mistakes. Cade Price has moved over to point guard, but this team is. I give O'Day a slight edge as the favorite to be number 2, but Bellarmine Prep and Edmonds Woodway I think are even money, man. I have it. I think I would go a 3 plus on Bellarmine Prep making the championship game to face the favorite Rainier Beach. Okay, the 2A, and your top 2 teams are RA Long and what's that team called? Oh, Bremerton. Yeah, those 2 teams playing in the 2A championship game. What's your confidence meter say on that one?
I think it's a 4. I think that I think Bremerton's, as long as Jalen Davis stays healthy, I think that they're a lock pretty much. It's just RA Long or Sela, I think is kind of where I'm leaning, and I would lean towards RA Long, but yeah, I think I'd give it a 4.
Yeah, I'd give it a 4 plus, maybe even a 5. I think these are the 2 best teams in 2A. Sela being kind of that 2B. It does help when the entire Northwest Conference, maybe a little down, that District 1. But, yeah, I mean, Bremerton with Jalen Davis is almost unbeatable. But, yes, his health is a big factor on Bremerton just being the clear favorite and being among the co-favorites. But I like what your rankings say with the 2A boys. 1A boys. You've got Zilla, you've got Linden Christian, ho hum. We've never seen these teams before. What's your confidence? What scale from 1 to 5 in that being the 1A championship game?
5 plus, maybe closer to a 6. I just think these 2 are just far and away the 2 best teams. It's really going to be if an injury happens at the wrong time or somebody starts, gets cold at the wrong time. But I think it's just inevitable we're going to get Linden Christian and Zilla for the state championship.
Love it when you color outside the lines, Matt Evans, and I agree with you. A 5. Enough said. These 2 teams, probably the most talented in 1A, probably the most experienced in 1A as well. Although do not sleep on Royal. I really like that team, and they could really kind of break up that party. 2B rankings. You have Colfax at 1. You have Northwest Christian of Colbert at 2. Confidence level on that being the state championship game between 2B Northeast teams.
I'm at a 4. I really am. I think these 2, I mean, you've got some good quality there in the next tier, but I think that there's enough of a gap that I think that talent-wise, I think they are the 2 best teams. I think Colfax is kind of, they've got the emotion going too with everything that they're going through. And I just, I feel very good about this. Now, I think the thing that's going to be really interesting is, the District 5 champion. Let's say Northwest Christian Colbert loses and is the 2 seed coming out of District 6. Will the seeding committee elevate a potential D5 champion of Liberty Bell or Okanagan over Northwest Christian Colbert? That's going to be the big key, in my opinion, is where Northwest Christian comes into the 2B tournament.
Was really impressed with Northwest Christian playing Colfax on its home court a couple weeks ago. They have some shooters. I agree with you. I think it's 4 plus in a really good classification, in a really deep classification in 2B with one giant in Colfax playing for its coach, cancer-stricken coach, Reese Jenkin. All right, the 1B coach, the 1B rankings from Matt Evans, Liberty Christian at 1, Almira Cooley Heartline at 2. On a scale from 1 to 5, what's your confidence level that will be the 1B state championship game?
I think it's a 1, to be honest with you. And I think my hot take would be I don't think either one of these teams makes the state championship. I really feel confident in Lummi Nation. I really feel confident in Tulalip or Muckleshoot. I think there's 5 or 6 teams right below them that I think I think that, don't get me wrong. I think Liberty Christian, Elmira Cooley Heartland are good teams, but I feel like matchup wise, I could see some of these smaller schools, smaller teams over on the west side that play faster that could take them to the brink. And I'm going to say it. I think it's a 1. I don't think either one of them makes it to the state championship.
Well, I'm a little more confident in ACH with the two brothers leading the charge. I'm going to say 2. But I agree with you for the same reason. I think Lummi Nation, with its height, and Jerome Toby Jr., the All-State guard, back for his senior year, I think they're the favorite to get to the championship game. But I think ACH is going to join them in a really good classification as well. I think there's a lot of quality. When you didn't even mention DeSales. But I'm going to say 2 on that one. So, all right, let's get over to the girls' side of things. We'll start right at the top 4A rankings. You have number 1 Union and number 2 Woodinville. What on a scale from 1 to 5, and you cannot use the word 0. You cannot use the number 0 or negative numbers. What's your confidence level in Union and Woodinville being the 4A championship game in March?
I don't want to say a 1. I want to say slightly over a 1, like a 1.2 or something. Because I think one of those teams makes it. I think obviously we know Davis is the best team in 4A girls. And I don't think, but there's always that chance, crazy things happen when you get to the dome. And so I don't want to say it's 0, but I think there's, it's Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber. So you're telling me there's a chance. I think there's a slight chance that this could happen.
This is where I'm going to color out the lines, outside the lines, Matt Evans. It is a 0. There is a 0% chance that these two teams play each other for the championship game. And if they do, I will drive to both communities and bring a pizza party. Guaranteed. No, Davis is, like you said, Davis is clearly the team to beat, the defending champ. They didn't lose anybody. One of these two teams could be in the championship game, but I think don't forget Sumner. There's a lot of good teams in 4A. It's going to be very interesting district tournaments, and don't forget Gonzaga Prep Chiawana in District 6. That looks like that might be a matchup of undefeated teams for a district championship. All right, 3A girls. The rankings from Matt Evans say number 1 is Bellevue, number 2 is Roosevelt. Scale 1 to 5. What's your confidence level that this is the 3A championship game?
I think it's a 4. I am probably leaning towards a 5, maybe a 4.5. For me, these are the 2 best teams. I don't see. I really think that the gap between the next tier is just massive, and after that, it's just kind of a crapshoot. But Ridgeline could make a run. I've got them right there. I think Stanwood's a really good team. I think North Thurston's a good team. White River's right there. You got so many really good teams, but I think that Bellevue and Roosevelt probably are the 2 best. So I'm going to say probably like 4.5.
Yeah, I'm a 4+ on that as well. Teams to watch out for: Snohomish girls playing really well right now under Ken Roberts, healthy. Eastside Catholic has kind of found its groove a little bit with Amy Naduko. They're probably the biggest matchup headache potentially in the tournament. But I agree with you, Matt Evans. Bellevue, Roosevelt, been the 2 best teams all season. I think there's a really, really good chance that they're going to play in the 3A state championship game. 2A, Linden and Deer Park. Now, I think if we said this at the beginning of the season, I think our number might be a little different than it is now, but scale from 1 to 5, the odds of Deer Park and Linden playing for the 2A state championship game, Matt Evans.
I'm going to say a 2, and I think we all can say Linden's going to be there. It's going to be who's the second team. And, I watched Deer Park Clarkston this last week. Great game. Clarkston has proven that they're supposed to be right there. Foster's a really good team. Archbishop Murphy, WF West. You've got really good teams for that second spot. I just think that I'm I'm not 100% confident in Deer Park. I think that they could do it, but I'm going to go probably a 2.
If you'd asked me this in November, I'd have told you 4+.
Mm-hmm.
I still like Deer Park a lot. Those guards are really good, but it just takes one off game in the dome. And you're right. You talk about some of the best players in girls basketball in the state of Washington. Herbie Wright, Brooke Blockley at Archbishop Murphy. That's Herbie Wright at Prosser. I just there is so much good basketball in this classification. It's my favorite classification for girls basketball in the state of Washington. You know, it would not surprise me, but I am not as high on that matchup being the state championship matchup as I would have been in November. Class 1A rankings. Let's go to the Matt Evans scorecard. Number 1, Zilla. Number 2, Linden Christian. Scale from 1 to 5, Matt Evans. What's the odds of this being a state championship game?
I think we can just take what I said for the 1A boys and just cut it in right here. This would be a good spot. So 5, 4, 3, to just cut it right here. Be perfect. No, I think it's a 5. I think these are the two best teams. I think that it's going to be a similar thing of if an injury hits at the wrong time, but I think maybe, Kings has an outside shot in my opinion, but I think that these two are far and away the best teams in 1A.
I had a conversation with Dan Taylor over the weekend, maybe not giving Kings enough credit. Obviously, they're a kind of a 1A independent, so they get to schedule a lot of these 3A, 4A teams.
Yep.
I had to go look back at their schedule and go, wow, they played that team tough. Wow, they beat that team. Wow. And Kaleo Anderson, they were in the championship game last year, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 3. I understand where you're going with this. I love Brady Bomber. Linden Christian always seems to be semifinals or championship game. I don't think this is the year. I think it's somebody else that gets to the championship games to play Zilla. And I do think it's going to be Kings. I think their schedule's tough enough. That loss to Linden was really impressive. Kaleo Anderson was well over 20 points in that game against one of the best defensive teams in the state. So I'm going to go 3. I understand what you're saying, but I'm going to give Kings a little more credit maybe than I have been. 2B, girls basketball. Matt Evans rankings. Number 1, Adna. Number 2, Napavine. All of Lewis County would cheer this matchup. What do you think the chances on a scale from 1 to 5 that this is the state championship game?
Well, I know I'm about to make a lot of friends in Lewis County when I say that I think this is a 1. I don't see this being the matchup. I think they're really good teams, but I think that both of them have weaknesses that can be exploited in certain matchups. I mean, if you look at the rankings, number 8 Cleellum beat them last week. Both these teams, while they do have strengths and while they are up there, I think that a team like Brewster could play them tough. I think Mount Vernon Christian, with their suffocating defense, I think they could be a really tough out. I don't see Adna Napavine being the state championship game.
I agree with you. I'm going to say a 1+ on this. Another great classification this year in girls basketball, the 2Bs. Very deep. Northwest Christian of Colbert, the defending champ. I don't think they've done anything to thwart me believing they won't be back in the state championship game. They went to Reardon and beat them by double digits here a couple weeks ago. Yes, District 4 would cheer heartily if Adna and Napavine got to the state championship game, but I don't think that's going to happen. And our last girls classification, the 1B girls, number 1 Nia Bay, number 2 Garfield Palouse. These two teams played in the state championship game a year ago. On a scale from 1 to 5, Matt Evans, will we see a rematch in the 1B state championship game?
Yes, I think we will. I would say it's a 5. I really like both these teams. I think Nia Bay is the best team, but I really like what Garfield Palouse brings. I think that they're on a good trajectory. I think it will be a rematch, and I think that Garfield Palouse, maybe takes it this time.
Yeah, unless Yakima Tribal makes 23 pointers against ACH, I agree with you. I think it's a 4+ that these two teams play in the 1B state championship game in a rematch from a year ago. The Lady Reds on quite a run of championships. Well, that will do it this week for the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. I'd like to thank our special guests for coming on. our boys basketball analyst, Blake Conley, our girls analyst, Pete Smith, and our friend in the Tri-Cities, Matt Evans, never short of opinions. Thanks for joining the podcast. We will be back next week, and enjoy WIAA playoff basketball. This podcast is brought to you by Varsity Washington, your source for high school sports news, rankings, and more around the state of Washington. You can listen to new episodes of the VarsityWA Podcast weekly on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And for more from VarsityWA, visit us at varsitywanews.com and subscribe for daily posts covering the high school sports landscape around the state. A special thank you to our guests on this episode and to Carl Johnson and Matt Bueller of the Portland-based band Edith and Axon for providing the music you hear at the beginning and end of this podcast each week. You can find the band on Instagram at Edith Axon Official. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in to the VarsityWA Podcast. For producer Lauren Smith, I'm your host, Todd Milles. We will be back next week.